we're going to hear from Larry Jennings, and his title is My Journey of the Mystery Schools. He was ordained in 2005 as a minister of the Fellowship of the Inner Light, where he still serves on the Pastoral Council. He has served as pastoral chair, president of the board of directors, and as treasurer. He is a member of the Masons belonging to Ruth Lodge number 89 in Norfolk. He is a member of the ARE in Virginia Beach. Larry served 45 years as a funeral director, serving families with compassion, understanding, and dignity. He retired in July of 2020 as funeral service vice president of Altmeyer Funeral Homes in the Tidewater area. He now enjoys traveling, spending time with his family. He has 16 grandchildren, and he continues to serve part-time in the funeral home. And Larry is a real special member of our church. When I have problems, I always go to Larry because he's so wise and he can see through all the stuff and come up with helping with the solution. And he's another treasure of our fellowship here. So now let's greet Larry. Thank you.
Righty. Thank you for that great introduction. And I was asked to kind of wrap up this whole weekend and what it's meant to us. And I always, when I'm getting ready to prepare a talk, I go to the top of the mountain and I meditate. And what I'm going to present to you is what was presented to me. So I hope you enjoy it. And I hope we all learn something from it. I always speak from my heart and I tell some of my stories. The beginning of this, some of this I used in a talk not too long ago, but it really felt pertinent to tell it again to this group. So I'm going to share these things with you. But after we've had these last few days together, we've been blessed by all the presentations of examining the world's religions and philosophies. To all of our speakers, I say thank you. Wonderful. And for Sharon putting this together and having the idea, it's just been tremendous. But I believe that we have captured the essence of this year's gathering, the trail of the mystery schools. I wish to know so I can serve. We look around this sanctuary, you'll see represented, especially on the wall to your right, all the different world religions and all the things that are represented there. And we've talked about so many of them, and we've been blessed by them. But to me, the most important one is right in that picture again, because that ties all those together as we go up that mountain. I use that meditation a lot, and we get into that temple, into our higher place, and it's just wonderful. And I also recognize that each and every one of us have come from so many different backgrounds, and each of us can tell our own story about how we found this place. And I want to share with you, first of all, the first time that I came here. I clearly remember walking through these doors, a little apprehensive set in, wondering what this little church would be like. The first time I came, I couldn't find it. And I gave up and drove home. But I did make it in time for Mass. But my brother had told me about this church and attended here for a number of years. And when I walked through these doors, I was felt very welcomed. And when the service ended, one of the pastors from this church, I won't say who it was, but I watched him on that screen a while ago. But he gave me a hug. He approached me, put his arms around me, and gave me a hug that changed my life forever. You'll also find I can get emotional. I show my feelings. But that hug of his changed my life. And that hug brought me to a pathway that I felt a pathway to fulfilling my purpose. That embrace filled me with unconditional love. It touched me in a way that I'll never forget. I had never experienced that level of love before I came into this place. That pastor had no idea that from a simple gesture of approaching a stranger coming through our doors, of what an effect he would have in the course of a life. But what brought me here that day to have this experience? In 1990, a pathway opened up for me to move here from upstate New York. Looking back, I've come to understand that these circumstances were just not by chance. I believe they were orchestrated by my guides. They were always behind the scenes, presenting me with choices and quietly leading me to discovering my true self. Even if it meant moving 600 miles south of a place that I was extremely connected to, family, the mountains, the lakes of the Adirondacks, coming to these flatlands. But we loved the beach, and that was one of the reasons we came here. It's one of our things that we really enjoy. But looking back now, I believe my coming here was by design. It was as if a beacon of light was leading me here to fulfill my purpose, a purpose I believe that is a purpose of teaching, a purpose of charity, and a purpose of service. All of us were drawn to this place of peace in some way, and we each have our own story to tell. Some of you have had the privilege of being with our founder, Paul Solomon, as he taught, and some, like me, were drawn by his energy after he walked through the veil, leaving behind his love and leaving behind his teachings for us to follow. I can remember the day I was ordained, and as I drove to the church, suddenly Paul Solomon appeared in the seat next to me. And he told me that you and the others being ordained today would be the future leaders of our church. He smiled and then he left me. He left me spiritually in that moment, left me physically, but he's never left that place in my heart. It was a simple message, but his words, which I shared with the others that morning who were being ordained, it brought us all to a place of understanding and responsibility of what our ordination would mean, not just to ourselves, but to this church and to the people we serve. He told me we had a responsibility, and I can tell you, if you say that to a Capricorn, it has a deep meaning. Responsibility to this church, his work, and most importantly, understanding that we had been charged to lead and care for this place and its people. His presence is still here. And he continues to guide and shape this place we lovingly call the Fellowship of the Inner Light Church. When I look at my story and how it evolved from what I believe was not just a chance encounter of coming here, I was always connected to this place and its people. There's always been a plan for me to be here. I was given choices that led me here. I and each of you have grown in this lifetime by having this experience. I further understand and believe that we are all part of a much greater soul family than we can ever imagine or realize. When I began my journey here at the fellowship, I was amazed to come to a place that had speakers and programs on all these different truths. What I soon realized is that they weren't so different at all. Coming from a Catholic faith, with a little narrower view. Somehow this awakened a place inside of me. This church did that. And it opened up a portal of understanding, and I began to connect to that voice that had always been present within me. After attending here for a while, I found myself questioning myself to make a choice and where I would take these teachings that I was learning so much about. I had been reading, listening to tapes, attending classes, learning about all these different faiths and philosophies that I was learning about. And as a funeral director, I had a front seat view of all these pathways. Serving families from diverse backgrounds allowed me to attend a Catholic Mass on Monday, and on Tuesday to experience a Buddhist monk performing the rites of letting their loved one go. The one thing that's always been clear to me, no matter what kind of service I attended, that having a belief in a higher power brought families both understanding and peace. I remember very clearly the night I decided to meditate and to listen within to help me with a very difficult decision. Would I to stay in the Catholic faith or follow a new pathway that had presented itself to me? As I meditated, I found myself at St. Gregory's Catholic Church, where I was a member. I was sitting in the front pew and looking directly at the altar. This altar was presented to me differently in this meditation. The altar was divided. On the right side was the traditional church that I'd come to know, and to the left, rather than a traditional altar, was a beautiful meadow and a path leading to a waterfall and a mountain. And this was when I was just beginning to come here. On the right, in the traditional pulpit, was a priest I knew very well. He had married my daughter just a few months earlier than that, Melissa. Familiar name. He began to speak, and he said that he knew I was struggling to make a choice. He told me there was no wrong choice to make. If I chose to stay in the Catholic Church, that was fine. I would continue with my faith and experience what he and the church had to offer me. He then told me that I could choose to walk the pathway to the mountain and explore the unknown and take my spirituality in a new direction. Father John Mary then motioned with his arm to the right, to the altar he was standing at. Then he motioned to the altar to the left, showing me the meadow and the mountain again, simply repeating, "This is your choice, and neither are wrong. Simply follow your heart." Obviously, I chose to walk to the meadow because I am here with you today. Thank you. Earlier, I said that I believe that I was led here by my spirit guides. Let me clarify some of this through Paul Solomon's teachings. He said, "Now attune to self and attune self to the will of the Father and claim the blessings. Claim the presence of the divine spirit that lives within, for this is your spirit guide." He tells us guides are important. Father John Mary was such a guide for me, showing me that I was in charge of making my decision to leave the Catholic Church. And whatever my decision was, that was the right thing for me to do. This guide loved me so much that he gave me the free will to decide. For that moment, I'm forever grateful. Paul also told us in a reading, Allow these teachers into your life to ignite a spark of the Creator who lives within you. Seek to turn inward and fan his spark into flame, and follow these indications. Seek not from outside sources, but from deep inside within those things that would be of God. Looking back at what led me here to this place, I believe my guides presented me choices. My choices brought me here to this place at this time. These guides were always pointing me in the direction of going within. Within myself, I could experience my I am presence and communion with the source of all creation. I have learned so much through the years, and being here with each of you is one of my greatest treasures. This place and everything about it have awakened within me a spirit of belief, a belief that the voice resonating within me is the true source of all. So how do we as a church bring all these truths together? Let's start by looking at our expression of purpose. We are an interfaith community, interfaith spiritual community that honors each individual's path and the core teachings of all religions. Spiritual masters which hold love, light, and joy to be the nature, character, and the manifestation of God. We have heard over the last few days the wonderful teachings of the Essenes, Buddhism, the teachings of Paul Solomon, A Course in Miracles, Inner Light Consciousness, and so much more. Each one of these teaches about love. Each one of these teaches about light. Each one of them teaches about joy. Each of them is a manifestation of God. Each one is similar and gives us a foundation and a blueprint to finding happiness and finding our source. All these teachers have come to guide us to discovering our ultimate guide, our inner voice, that connection to Mother, Father, God, who we truly share our oneness with. The principle of oneness explains that everything in the universe, both seen and unseen, is connected by every part of the entity. Throughout history, this entity has been called by many names: Jehovah, Great Spirit, Allah, Brahma, the Creator, and countless other names. The Bible states, "For there is one body and one spirit, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and one Father of all, who is above all and through all and in us all." A Buddhist teaching tells us of oneness and says that we are all of the same pot. Think of a plant planted. We share the same roots, and what benefits one naturally benefits us all. What hurts one of us also hurts us all. So we must practice right mindfulness and use our inner wisdom in daily life. In the last prophecy of Crazy Horse, he says, "I see a time of 7 generations when all the colors of mankind will gather under the sacred tree of life, and the whole world will become one circle again." Isn't that beautiful? The last paragraph of our credo reads, "We believe it is not necessary to consider others wrong to make ourselves right. It is likely that every prophet throughout time has something valuable to share. It is likely that every religion has a gift to those who have ears to hear. We shall therefore welcome those who wish to worship with us in love and we will love those who choose not to worship with us. A great statement. That's what our church is all about. This church, which began 51 years ago by our founder, Paul Solomon, has brought his teachings to every corner of the world. This gathering right here has brought people from Japan. We're so excited to have all of you here. We've come from Hawaii. We've come from all over our country. And we've come together in that oneness. The sharing of what happened here can be seen all around the globe through the technology we now possess. This same technology is now being used to permanently store and make available all of Paul Solomon's teachings and readings. The Paul Solomon Foundation, with the help of this church, is currently having his works transferred from cassette tapes and other sources to a computer base, where they will be made readily available anyone wanting to seek their own spirituality. This work will assist in perpetuating his teachings. There are many of us here, as I said before, like myself, who didn't know Paul Solomon. Through his teachings and through the teachers he left behind, many of you who are present in this room today, you are still teaching as he taught. We love each and every one of you for that. Now we have a class of 11 seminarians. Some of them are here with us today. Stand up, please. Now we have a couple here. Thank you all. They are learning all about the different religions and philosophies. They're studying our Constitution. They're learning to trust their own connection to Source. Perhaps someday they may be teaching a new class here at the fellowship. I said earlier that when I received that hug from my pastor here, something awakened deep inside of me. Looking back at that moment, what I really remember most was the feeling that I was home. Isn't that what this gathering's about? Bringing us back home. Well, where did that feeling come from? Searching within and with my connection to Source, I understand that all my experiences brought me to this place with each of you. I knew before I came here, before I came into this incarnation, that I've had discussions with my guides as I chose to be here with you in this current lifetime. My decision to become the man before you today were because of choices that I made before I was born and choices that I have made during this incarnation. Our lives that we have experienced here, the Fellowship of the Inner Light, will be written in our own book in the Hall of Records. Some of who have already crossed over, and a page of their book has documented the love that they have for this special place. Someday my own book will have a new chapter when I visit it, and I will experience this time here again as a past life. I will experience everything that I have learned, and I will remember what is written in my heart and how this loving home impacted my life. There will be more people led here to our circle. Every person who walks through these doors, every person who watches our speakers, every person who gets on the internet, explores our church's website or the Paul Solomon Foundation website, they will keep the spirit of this place alive. Whether they stay and continue their spiritual journey with us, perhaps they may only be with us for a moment, reading one of Paul's lectures or reading our expression of purpose online. Whatever these people do, they carry a part of this place with them always. They will make our circle stronger, just as those who are on the other side still are with us and perhaps are teaching other souls waiting to incarnate about inner light consciousness. When these new souls are born on a planet, they too will be guided, and they too will make choices that may bring them here to us. And through them, our church will live on. Perhaps one of these souls from the other side of the veil brought me here to experience a hug from a pastor, which changed my life. Perhaps one of them whispered in my ear, "I wish to know so I can serve." I say to each of you, I love you unconditionally, and in gratitude, I thank you for being part of our circle, that circle that encompasses our entire universe. Thank you.